Hello, everyone. This is Deepak Parekh, Managing Partner, HnyB, a niche management consulting organization focused on intersection of agriculture and technology. We welcome you to this episode of Uncluttering Food and Agriculture, a web series. Uncluttering Food and Agriculture is an initiative in which we discuss with global change makers key issues impacting food and agriculture sector and how we can make this sector environmentally sustainable, financially inclusive, efficient, and fair. We try to understand how these global transformative leaders view current food and agriculture ecosystem and what is their vision for the sector going forward. Today, our area of interest is agriculture and food security in conflict zones. We have one of the best person to talk about the same, Heidi, an icon which has empowered more than 1 million in conflict zone through power of agriculture. She is founder and CEO at Roots of Peace. It is a humanitarian non-profit organization founded in September 1997 with a vision to transform mines to vines, replacing the scourge of landmines with sustainable agriculture farmland. Her pioneering work empowers families living in war-torn regions with hope, leading to the economics of peace through export and trade. In 1997, she realized that landmines were a cancer to the earth and made a prophetic toast that the world may go from mines to vines, replacing the landmines with bountiful vineyards and orchards worldwide. To date, Roots of Peace has impacted over 1 million farmers and families spanning 8 countries: Afghanistan, Angola, Bosnia, Cambodia, Croatia, Iraq, Israel, Palestine, and Vietnam. Her work has been facilitated the increase of agriculture export in Afghanistan from $250 million in 2014 to $1.4 billion in 2020. Root of Peace has facilitated the removal of over 100,000 landmines and unexploded ordnance, restoring the land for agriculture bounty. She has been awarded the gubernatorial appointment to the California Council of the Humanities in 1996, the Cal Barkley Alumni Award for Excellence and Achievement in 2002, the Martin Women's Hall of Fame Award in 2003, the World Association of Non-Governmental Organizations Award for Peace and Security in 2005, the UN World Environment Day Walk the Talk Award again in 2005, the Rotary International Service Above the Self Award 2005, the Skoll Award on Social Entrepreneurship in 2006, the Spirit of Martin Award in 2013, the Gandhi Global Family Seva Award, and the inaugural Peace Award from the Afghan Senate in 2021. Our supporters include the US government, the United Nations, the World Bank, and other international governments and organizations. She has been recognized by numerous world leaders, including UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Francis, and many heads of state and government. She was also invited to be speaker at the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates in 2016, Earth Ethics Award in 2018. Thanks, Heidi, for accepting our invitation to participate in this web series, Uncovering Food and Agriculture. Floor is yours to tell us about the great work you are doing, and we are really honored to have you on this web series.
Thank you so much. It's my honor to join you and to join your amazing series and tell a very humanitarian and humble story on how we as global citizens can plant the roots of peace on Earth. Well, as you mentioned, in September 1997, in the very living room of our Kuhn family home in San Rafael, California, 3 weeks after the death of the late Princess Diana, I raised a toast: may the world go from mines to vines. And never knowing where those words that came through me rather than from me could go out of the living room of our family home and impact families around the world. In fact, this is the only way we should be working as humanity as we come out of this global crisis of COVID-19. My wish and my heart is that we can come out with more compassion and understanding that transcends borders. In September 1997, following the death of Princess Diana, she had catapulted the issue of landmines to the forefront of the international agenda. I was unaware that we lived in a world where there's an estimated today 60 million landmines silently poised in 60 countries. And as a mother of 4 children, I recognized that children around the world couldn't run the fields, chase butterflies, pick flowers for their families, or kick a soccer ball out of bounds without losing life or limb to a seed of hatred planted in the ground, and long after the guns of war have silenced, tempting the footstep of an innocent child or farmer to detonate this seed of hatred, and only producing only more hatred from both soil and soul. So that quest began, and sometimes we can host people in our home. I was asked by the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco, again, September 21st, 1997, to host some people who were working on the landmine issue. It was Jerry White, who had just led Princess Diana through Bosnia the month before. And he was a landmine survivor, as well as Dr. Ken Rutherford, who was a double amputee from an unexploded ordnance that detonated in Africa when he was a young boy. And unbeknownst to them, her footsteps would not continue on to raise this very important issue of landmines in a world that we were given to shepherd and to share. So I went to the Napa Valley, to the business leaders, to Robert Mondavi, Mienko Grgic, Diane Disney Miller, Tor Kenward, and Eric Wente, and asked them, since they were farmers, to help take this seed of an idea with absolutely no funding, not even a penny to my name, not even an organization. And together we set out on a trek. And 2 months later, the people who were in the living room of our home had actually won the Nobel Peace Prize on landmines, Jody Williams and the international campaign to ban landmines. I approached the 3 vintners, Robert Mondavi, who sent his emissary from Canada, Tor Kenward of Beringer, and Eric Wente, who owned Wente Vineyards in Livermore. Together, we went to witness the signing of the Ottawa Treaty to ban landmines, the first civil society gathering where over 100 nations band together in a commitment to destroy these seeds of destruction that prevent farmers from cultivating their fields. But Roots of Peace went a step further. We decided that once the landmines are out of the ground, what next? You can't leave the land fallow for people to fight. And that integrity of knowledge of farming that was passed on through generational wisdom from grandfather to father to son was broken with the cycle of violence. So Roots of Peace came in not only to eradicate the landmines in terms of the advocacy that we had done, but most importantly, to plant the vineyards and the orchards and the bounty of the earth that we share through agribusiness. I launched Roots of Peace in San Francisco officially on April 20th, 1998. And there was a lovely congresswoman sitting by my side. She had promised to follow the efforts of Roots of Peace for however long it takes. And sometimes, Deepak, we don't know in life where those people we just happen to be seated next to humbly in a room may go. But her name is Nancy Pelosi. And over the years, I've had the honor of being invited by her to Congress, where she was the top woman sworn in on 2 occasions to be Speaker of the House of the United States. That promise she had made to me to support my efforts as a mother. She's a mother of 5, I am a mother of 4, but as a mother from the heart of women, to protect our children, to protect our farmers, to feed our children, and to literally plant the roots of peace on earth. That quest continued, and in January of 2000, I decided that it was time to walk the talk. And I told my husband and 4 children that it was the new millennium. And I didn't want to go to an exotic place like Hawaii or Tahiti, where many of my friends were going. I wanted to show the substance of my footsteps. And I wanted to go to walk a minefield on behalf of those who have no voice. So coordinating an effort and led by the U.S. Department of State, PMWRA, Office of Political Military Affairs, Weapons Removal and Abatement, I put together a small delegation. And it really was friends and family. Ann Lawrence, who was a member of my Rotary Club of San Rafael, accompanied me, as well as Autodesk, a company in San Rafael, California, that helps identify locations. They had never thought of locating landmines, but through their GPS and AutoCAD software, they had donated it to me to help support and find these mines. Well, when we went in January of 2000, there were an estimated 1.2 million landmines in Croatia. And we came back to California and advocated for the eradication of these seeds of destruction. We successfully removed those landmines in places called Vukovar, Ilak, Čestamale, Čestavelika, Dragalić, Bibinje, and Baštica. And through the partnerships that we had with the Rotary Clubs of Croatia and San Rafael and our district governors, we were able to remove hundreds of thousands of landmines from this beautiful area of the former Yugoslavia. Well, there was another California vintner, Mijenko Grgić, and he owned Grgić Hills, and he's probably one of the most famous California vintners and vintners in the world, for he won the Paris tasting in 1996 that put the Napa Valley on the map along with Robert Mondavi. There were 17 wineries at that time, and today there are over 600 wineries. How he won that was in 1976, he won the Paris tasting. It was a blind tasting. And he proved the fact that wines grown in California could be equal to those of France. So, but he was born in Croatia. And when he heard of what I was doing, again, step by step, not a penny really at that time to my name, but just armed with a vision of the heart, he said, I will go with you to my homeland of Croatia. So in May of it was 1998, we set out on a quest together, to raise the funds. And then in May of 2000, we actually walked again a minefield 5 months after my initial journey. I brought my 13-year-old daughter because she was just having her birthday on May 1st. And I wanted her also to see what it took for children around the world who were not as privileged to hike the mountains and run the beaches without fear of landmines. This left a deep impression in my daughter's heart. And Kylie, which is her name, went on throughout her high school years to raise over 50 million American pennies for peace, to build schools for girls in Afghanistan. Well, as history continued to unfold, we were able to clear those mines in Croatia. And today I can proudly say that to visit Croatia, it is one of the top tourist destinations in the world. And I have literally seen it go from mines to vines. So when people tell me it's impossible to take on the other 59 countries in the world where there's an estimated 60 million landmines, I just pretend I can't hear that because you have to have faith to walk the talk. And as much as this world has so many impossible obstacles and political landmines, we must use within our collective global hearts and overcome these obstacles. Even though the challenges are sometimes so daunting, we don't seemingly have the answers. And from my experience, when you surround yourself by good people like you, Deepak, and telling this story and amplifying the power of human potential and to be the true shepherds of the one earth we share, we can do things beyond our greatest imagination. I've seen that within my lifetime. Tragically, September 11th hit the shores of the United States of America, and we learned of Afghanistan. Instead of turning mines to vines with beautiful wine, we took our footsteps to Afghanistan, from Croatia to Afghanistan. And of course, Afghanistan is a Muslim country, and with due respect to their culture, one never, ever ferments the grapes. But the choice of the vine and the work of human hands, there are beautiful grapes and raisins. And it really, it's the choice of the grapevine that respects multiple faiths. And so we hosted an event to raise the funds for Afghanistan. We were so sad that of course, the tragedy of over, nearly 3,000 Americans and internationals being killed on 9/11. But a promise was made by President Bush that we would help the innocent people. And I listened to that cry, and as well as my family. And we pivoted over to Afghanistan, and we learned that it was not only the most heavily mined country in the world, but conversely, it is called the Garden of Central Asia. And most people don't recognize that it's a country 80% dependent upon agriculture for jobs. 60% of Afghanistan today is under the age of 30 years old. So if we're going to win this war, it's got to be from the ground up, by eradicating the landmines, clearing the land so it's fertile and safe for the farmers to cultivate, and then assessing the agricultural potential and going in there to plant literally the roots of peace. Well, we began our first effort in Afghanistan, and what we did was excuse me, I had an interview here. What we did is went to the Shamali Plains, and that is north of Kabul. And through the funding of Diane Disney Miller, who was, unbeknownst to me, was the daughter of Walt Disney. Diane owned Silverado Vineyards, and she would come each and every week to my home to volunteer to help me in the basement of my home, because that's where I was based. There was no ivory tower. There was no huge, investment or venture capitalist who took me instantly out of this mines to vines toast. It was hard work from the basement of a mother's home. And I'm very, very proud of those roots. And one day, Mrs. Miller took me out to lunch. And as I was just so passionate about turning mines to vines in Afghanistan, she took out her checkbook. She wrote the biggest check I had ever seen. Again, humbly, when you're gathering pennies, it was a $200,000 check. And she said, "Heidi, go turn your mines to vines. You remind me of Dad." And I looked at the check and I looked at Mrs. Miller and I said, "Who was your father?" And she humbly stated, "Walt Disney." And she told me of something that I will never forget, that it took her father 330 no's for him to convince the world that a mouse with ears was going to change the world. So that was Mickey Mouse. And with her great sense of humor, she said, "This is a Mickey," meaning it's very easy and we can do this. So with that very generous funding, we partnered with the United Nations Mine Action Service, and the Halo Trust was our implementing partner in safely removing over 100,000 landmines north of Kabul in the Shamali Plains, which was the front line of the Taliban fighting, certainly over 20 years ago. And when we introduced the trellis grapevines, the farmers were growing grapes on mounds, and in the hot sun, they would harvest them on burlap sacks and drag these fresh grapes to market, hoping to get a meager profit. Well, Roots of Peace came in and we introduced the trellis vines, which literally lifts the grapes off the ground, much like we have in California. And so we did a demonstration plot through our partnership with USAID and Chemonics, so it's our implementing partner. And we told the farmers, these very traditional gray-haired beards, elders in these communities took a lot of trust for my husband, Gary, and my son, Tucker, to convince them that we would come back in the spring. Well, when we did, I learned my very first American lesson. The Afghans had cut down all of the wooden posts. And we said, why? Why did you do this? We told you it would work. And what I learned is the importance of listening. They told me that it was the coldest winter on record. And Mrs. Kuhn, if we hadn't cut our trellis posts, we could not have kept our family warm or fed them on the stoves. So what we did is we introduced the cement trellis posts. And today, throughout all of Afghanistan, these cement trellis posts have served the purpose of lifting those vines, but with listening to the needs of the Afghan people and how that was going to work as a solution in their culture. So the roots of peace started to expand beyond the Shamali plains as farmers learned that there were alternative agricultural crops. And if you look at Afghanistan today, and as always, to me, it is shaped like a leaf, and it's an opportunity to turn over a new leaf for Afghanistan. And through your excellent programming, Deepak, I hope people can learn the fact that Afghanistan is a country dependent upon agriculture. And this harvest of hope that I am cultivating in present time is more important than ever against the obstacles not only of COVID-19, but also the obstacles of increasing violence. Now, when you look to the south, I'm managing currently a rolling harvest, which means the harvest begins now in the south with the pomegranates and the beautiful melons. And in the legacy and the lore that I've heard from traveling on many times to India, the Afghan traders were called the Kabuliwalas. They were the fabled Afghans who would bring these beautiful fresh fruits to the new market. So right now, those beautiful pomegranates and melons are being harvested. And then we work, up through that leaf into Ghazni, Wardak, Logar, where the apples, apricots, and almonds will be harvested. Then, of course, north of Shamali with the beautiful grapes and raisins, and into Jalalabad with the oranges, and over to the west to Herat with the beautiful saffron and cherries and Badakhshan. You know, I think of Afghanistan differently than most people. They think of it as Tora Bora and caves and seemingly impossible odds to win a war on terrorism. Well, I believe very deeply, as I have seen with my own eyes, that we as human beings have the ability to turn swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks, so that nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So I am in the fight of my life with shovels, empowering these farmers to have the dignity to harvest these fresh fruits. Over the years, with partnership with USAID, Roots of Peace has planted over 5 million fruit trees in all 34 provinces, impacting over 1 million farmers and families. So it is my responsibility, and why I cannot personally travel to Afghanistan right now due to the challenges of COVID-19 and the growing violence. I can manage that from the living room of my home, as I did 24 years ago. And through the tools of technology, we are doing an exceptional job in Afghanistan. Currently, I manage over $75 million under contract, 30 million in new funding from USAID, and also $45 million in funding from the United States, U.S. Department of State, International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. And basically with that funding, we're providing alternative agricultural crops to poppies. Now, an average farmer will grow low-value crops such as wheat. They'll earn $800 growing opium, poppies. Poppies they grow, of course, not opium, it's poppies, $1,200, and then growing with Roots of Peace, the high-value crops, which I mentioned, the pomegranates and grapes, they'll earn between $3,000 and $4,000. So it's just a matter of the economics of peace and the choice that farmers have when you present that to them. Now, not only are we providing through our programs throughout nearly 2 decades, changing the harvest from, again, harvesting midday on burlap sacks, but we built cold storage facilities all throughout Afghanistan, meaning the farmers now harvest in the early morning. They bring them to cold storage facilities. They have corrugated boxes and are able to sort the apples, according to size. And they're branded with Afghanistan fresh fruits. And then furthermore, we provide the market linkages to India, to UAE, to Pakistan, to Moscow, to Tajikistan. And these are doubling and tripling the income for farmers. So it's very solution-based. It is the economics of peace, the business of peace. And again, amidst the extreme challenges as this Harvest of Hope 2021 begins, we are boots on the ground with Roots of Peace. And currently I'm managing over 350 Afghan employees throughout the country, and with close coordination are finding the alternatives to the tremendous obstacles which we are facing. Today, for instance, I had a 2-hour conversation because I'm looking at my notes here. I mean, this is just fresh off the reality of what's going on. But in Kunduz today, and also Zabul, it's the apricots that are ripe again on those vines. Think of the passion of these farmers in cultivating and planting and nurturing these fruits. But now, when it's time for harvest, due to the impact of war, 10 of the districts we've worked in of the 28 have been taken over by the Taliban. Bridges have been destroyed, roadside bombs to prevent the transfer of vehicles and troops. But those are our trade routes. So what Roots of Peace is doing, and a completely innovative solution based on the ground, quick alternatives, is that we have deployed our traders and teachers from Kandahar and various provinces, because we can't get through from Kabul, to train the farmers how to dry the fruit, to dry it with sulfur so it's organic, and they're going to be able to preserve those apricots in real time and find an alternative with dried apricots. So this is the innovation of our farmers on the ground. I am just, Deepak, humbly overseeing this, and I always have loved the quote by Sir Isaac Newton: "If I have seen further than others, it is only because I've stood on the shoulders of giants." And those giants to me today are the Afghan people who I stand in solidarity with today. We will not give up on this harvest. We will find alternative routes of peace, ROUTES, and we will do everything within our capability to get these fresh fruits to new markets. And hopefully, Deepak, we will get those fresh fruits to you in India, and in time for your wonderful population, the largest or third largest economy in the world. It's supply and demand. You've got the supply of these beautiful fresh fruits and nuts and spices, and you've got the demand in India. So together, let's plant those roots of peace on earth, Deepak.
Sure, 100%. Very fascinating story. And in fact, your passion to save the crop, that's infectious, because every farmer, he loves to save his crop. And I think your crop is far more than one season crop. It's your roots has been there in so many countries. And I believe, the people of Afghanistan are so fortunate, right, to have champions like you trying to help them. At the same time, the world is a better place because of people like you, because you think about very simple things, right? Getting food in the plate of people across the world and getting farmer the remunerative prices. Now that brings me to my first question after your introduction. Conflict zones has always been places where the livelihood suffers, leading to a lot of economic distress and leading to food scarcity and food security issue. What, according to you, are the challenges faced by, the conflict zone? And we are having so many conflict zones across the world, as you have mentioned, right, which don't even have landmines, but they are conflict zones, and people are suffering there. How do you see that agriculture playing a role, and what are the challenges to make agriculture play that role, according to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that question. I believe it's 3 simple words. It's peace through agriculture. We need to be leading with shovels and not swords. Empowering the farmer to dig deeper for peace. And that peace is the prosperity from those fruits, and teaching these farmers in these post-conflict and conflict-ridden regions the dignity to farm their land and to grow high-value crops, not only to feed their family, but provide exports to new markets. We have to replace the value chain. And the business model that we have established with Roots of Peace is demine, replant, and rebuild the economy. And when accomplished in Afghanistan, in one of the hardest neighborhoods where Roots of Peace has proudly worked for nearly 2 decades on this anniversary of 9/11, we can roll this out worldwide, because in Syria, we are working actually with women farmers, led by an incredible woman, Mother Agnes, whom I met when I was speaking at the Nobel Peace Prize laureate conference in Bogota. She implored me to help with the women in Syria who had lost their husbands to war. But what grows in Syria? Aleppo pepper. And we have just gotten this past month, through incredible obstacles, this beautiful, tasty spice of Aleppo pepper. And when it arrived, I personally went over with my son, Christian, to pick it up at San Francisco airport, and going through, believe me, the import, the security to get that spice here, but to sell it to the new markets. You know, this is a business model for peace, Deepak. And another area of conflict and post-conflict I'd like to take you to is Vietnam. The Vietnam War ended on April 30th, 1975. But today, on the former DMZ, in an area called Quang Tri Province, over 80% of the land is currently riddled with unexploded ordnance. Over 10 years ago, in 2010, my own son, Tucker Kuhn, went over there as our country director. In my day, a young blue-eyed, blonde young man would have been there with a draft card. Instead, he was there drafting peace and working with the Vietnamese government, mainly the farmers in these remote areas, not only clearing the landmines through our partnership with MAG, the Mines Advisory Group, but then going in forth and training the farmers to grow the best black pepper in the world. Now, just like grapes have different regions that, you know, perhaps California or France, all over the world, you know, may have delicious grapes in different Appalachia. But in Vietnam, pepper is a fruit, and the best pepper in the world grows on these farmer battlefields. So throughout the past decade, we have trained over 10,000 Vietnamese farmers to grow high-value black pepper, and furthermore, sold them across the ocean to Morton and Bassett Spice Company in the United States. And today, when you go on the supermarket shelf, you can pull a bottle of Morton and Bassett Spice black pepper, and on the back will be our Roots of Peace logo, which is the grapevine and dove of peace. And to give the world a taste of peace from those former battlefields, for as we heal the wounds of war by the remnants we have left behind, we are going in and planting literally the peace, the roots of peace on earth that are necessary to provide jobs and hope and dignity to these farmers living in post-conflict zones. So again, from Afghanistan to Vietnam to Croatia, it ripples around the world. And I think if we come together as a world and can see a glass of water half full rather than half empty, I think we can join hands in this post-COVID-19 environment in which we live.
Again, mesmerized by the work you have done in Vietnam, because I also love Vietnam. I've been there many times. And as you rightly said, like, you know, if there is a pepper which is as good as Indian pepper, then it is from Vietnam. And I'm pretty sure, like, you know, you would have contributed, right, in like stealing thunder from Indian pepper. So congratulations for that. That brings me to a very, very important question.
Well, I always like to have positive things, Deepak. Maybe we can have like the Paris tasting, you know, a blind tasting on the pepper, and, you know, just give the world a taste of peace. I think we could have a friendly competition there.
No, if you ask me, like, I've been in agriculture for, like, you know, not too long, right? Just 6 years. I worked in 34 countries, and for me, you'll be surprised. Like, an Indian farmer is a farmer equal to a Pakistani farmer, equal to an Iranian farmer, equal to an American farmer. For me, farmer is farmer, right? And whatever beautiful thing he grows, right, that comes on a plate. And believe me, food doesn't have race, doesn't have nationality, doesn't have religion. Food is food, it's hope. So I believe in that philosophy. So, like, you know, a good pepper, whether it comes from Vietnam or India, I don't mind. I love that, right? So that brings me to a very pertinent question. Like, you know, you have been doing such an awesome work, right, when it comes to conflict zone, especially when there are mines. But the world are having other conflicts as well. Do you want to, like, you know, get your act, your business models, your initiatives in other part of the world where actually mines might not be there, but the stress, the struggle is still there.
That's a very important question, again, Deepak, and that is where we're pivoting now into Guatemala, into an area called the Northern Triangle, which are the countries of Guatemala, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. And as you have read in the news, there is a tremendous border crisis at the United States with immigrants coming in looking for jobs, desperate, and the solution has been to build bigger and higher walls. Well, we think there's an alternative to that, and that, again, is applying our business model to Guatemala. My son, Tucker Kuhn, is actually down there and has been there for the past 3 years, looking at business opportunities, not only in growing some of the best coffee in the world, but the avocados and the rich agricultural land and potential that Guatemala has. So we are looking, again, to expand our business model. And while there's no landmines, physical ones there, the political landmines of civil war has really, taken that country down to a very poor and a very rich. And there's no middle income in between. So we are working, the farmer is our hero, as we both just stated. The farmer is our hero. We are working at ground zero to help these farmers and doing the demonstration plots. I will be going down there next month in July and personally traveling to the remote regions and working with the farmers and listening to them and hearing their stories as to why they are moving in masses to seek jobs in the United States. One thing I've learned over the 24 years of experience that I have is nobody chooses to be a refugee. Why would you want to leave your country, your mother, your father, your grandparents, and go barefoot across the country seeking a better life where you have no even tiny glimmer of hope or know where that journey will lead you. But if we can look at the world with a different prism of light to these areas and create the economics of peace and cultivate peace through agriculture, I believe the entrepreneurial investments that can be made in Guatemala right now can really help, again, a country where 60% of the population is under the age of 30 years old. These young people need hope. They need the means to support themselves, and rather than living on $7 a day, which is the average down there if they're lucky, coming up to the United States for $14 an hour. What would you do? What would you do? So we have to look at the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is the lack of jobs through agriculture. Again, the fertile lands of Central America, the Northern Triangle, and bullseye for me will be Guatemala. So with our demonstration plot, just like we started with that little plot in the Shamali Plains north of Kabul, my dream is to have it ripple out throughout the country, throughout the region, and hopefully, inshallah, around the world.
Inshallah, for sure, because I would say that if an idea's time has come, right, it will arrive. And that is what I believe, and that's happening, because people like you are creating that, I'll say that sparks, which can really create fire where actually the whole of the world would be a better place, for sure. I would also love to understand a little bit about the beautiful book, is coming out, right, about you. And because I believe, it would be encyclopedia for people to understand that, what agriculture can do, how it can bring people out of misery, poverty, and all the conflicts they are in. Can you just talk a little bit about the book which is coming out?
I just actually have it here. It's called
wow.
Breaking Ground. So this is a picture of me in the minefields of Vietnam, and then, of course, with the dear children of Afghanistan. And I'm very grateful to Her Majesty Queen Noor, who wrote the foreword, and then Dr. Ken Rutherford, who was the double amputee, that led Princess Diana through Bosnia. So the importance of turning minds to vines. And then on the back, I'm very, very proud as an American of the bipartisan support. It's very important to me with what's going on in our country today, that we take those American ethics, those bipartisan ethics that were instilled in our hearts. And the first quote is by Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't often do quotes for books, in fact, very rarely, if any, but I'm very appreciative for her early support from really day one. Cindy McCain, of course, her husband, Senator John McCain, fought in Vietnam and certainly fought for peace till his dying day. Ambassador George Moose, Pat Mitchell, and of course, Dr. Jane Goodall, because it's not just people that step on landmines, it's the animals. It takes only 8 pounds to detonate a landmine, which is the average weight of a newborn child. And, landmines carry no flag, they know no color. And it's the tender footsteps of an elephant, migrating through the Cuando region of Angola that is subject to landmines. And what happens there is that the animals, warn the other herds, and where along the Chobe River, where I visited in Angola and worked for 2 years, we were restoring the Transfrontier Park there because the elephants had warned the other herds so that they did not wander any further as they had for thousands of years, but instead infringed upon the villagers and were eating their food sources and trees. Well, what happens? The cycle of violence begins. The villagers shoot the elephants and, the whole balance of nature is thrown off. So again, very grateful to Dr. Jane Goodall for reminding us that it's not only the humans that suffer the perils of landmines, but it is the animals and of course the children who I advocate most strongly as well.
Awesome. Now, this brings us to the last section of this conversation, like a pretty interesting one and pretty rare one. I'll be be lying if I would say that I've had more interesting conversation before this, because it is so much insight, so much ignorance which you are having about the conflict zones, right? And the number of landmines we are having, the type of challenges because of these landmines, these conflict zones. So thanks a lot for I'll say that giving such an insight to me. Now, I would like to understand your vision, because the world is filled with so many challenges, right? And how do you see yourself, ensuring that this light which you have fired, it will continue for decades to come?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't.
Sorry to intervene here. At least one guy you have already got infected. That's me. So I'll start thinking about how to contribute more, right?
Oh,
but
I love that.
How many more you can get, and what is your vision for doing that?
That's right. Well, let's create a global pandemic for peace. I mean, why not? We've had our experience with COVID, so let's not inoculate ourselves from the power of love. And really, that's really what this is all about, Deepak. I am a CEO and a competent CEO for the past 24 years, but my most important tiara is the fact that I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother. And I think sharing that message around the world and really protecting the skin of Mother Nature is our moral responsibility as human beings. I've always loved that quote by John F. Kennedy the year prior to the year of his death on June 10th at the American University is, we all inherit the same earth. We all love our children. We all breathe the same air. And in the end, we're all mortal. And so what legacy do we want to leave back for future generations? I believe in the very humble footsteps of a mother. And I think joining hands with mothers and fathers around the world, as Diane Disney Miller said, this is a Mickey. Take out the landmines all over the world. We have the power if we put our minds to do that. But most importantly, let's restore this one beautiful earth with the agricultural bounty of fruits, of nuts and spices, and create a new business model for peace. Let's feed our children. Let's feed the future. And together, may we plant the roots of peace on earth. That's my humble prayer in all faiths, all colors. And as my Granny McNear, who gave me this beautiful home, I'm a 5th generation Californian and now a grandmother of multiple beautiful children. Coincidence is a miracle in which God prefers to remain anonymous. So there are no accidents, Deepak, in meeting you, and just many greetings to the warm and loving people of India. My grandchildren, Jai and Layla, are Indian, and for the children of the world, they deserve better. And I think we have the power, with the two of us beginning this, let's see where it can ripple out with your beautiful programming. I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for this interview.
Pleasure is mine, and we are honored, right, to have you, right? Very interesting discussion, and believe me, the perception has changed a lot, and I think that is what you have been trying to do, putting in heart of so many people the love, the hope, and trust, and always creating value through food, right? And the farmers are our champions. So thanks a lot for such an awesome interview, as well as the great work you are doing. Thank you. Look forward to have more interaction and meet you in person once the COVID is gone. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Namaste.